Welcome to Chopping It Up, a podcast powered by Journey, where we talk about freight, how people got to where they are, and their career journeys, pun intended. All right, let's chop it up. Today on the Journey podcast, we have Joy Stevens, Chief Consultant at New Heights Academic and Leadership Consulting. Joy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here on your show.
Absolutely. Fun fact here. This is on my side. I've known Joy the last, it's almost been 13 years, last 12 years of my life. Yeah. Met her during my time at Kimberly-Clark, and we've stayed in touch. She's been an incredible mentor and sales coach for me all throughout those years. So I'm really glad to be able to reconnect and learn a little bit about what you've been up to.
You know, I have to say, you were always one of my favorite people that I worked with, that I trained, etc. You were a light. You still are. It's one of the things that drew me to you. I was like, this kid is different, as in a good way, you know. So I'm really, really glad to see you succeeding and doing so much more than what we tried to box you into. You know,
it was an incredible time there, and I'm really appreciative to have met you and a lot of other mentors I have from my time at KC. So thank you for helping to shape me at a young age. I think I was 22 when I met you, so it's pretty cool. Yeah. Okay, so let's dive into a fun fact about Joy. She told me that she wanted to be an actress and was actually an extra a couple of times. So tell me a little bit about that.
I got bitten by the acting bug in elementary school, and I wanted to be an actress. If my parents had not been like post-civil rights parents, they might have supported me being an actress, but instead they were like, you need a job. You need to do something that's going to make money. You can take your pick from anything: lawyer, doctor, engineer. You got options. It was one of those three. I became an engineer. But I loved acting. I loved the stage. I loved everything about it. I was in my first play in, like I said, elementary school. And even after I started with Kimberly-Clark, I was working in Atlanta, and they have acting classes, but they also do open calls. And so I got a chance to go on a couple of open calls after work, you know. And I was an extra in the movie Drumline, if you remember that movie. Yeah. Now, you're not going to see me in the actual movie because the scene that I was in, luckily they were looking for sorority members because they didn't want to, you know, perpetrate a fraud with having random actors wear sorority colors so that anybody that's Greek come out. So I put on a little Delta jacket, and we were in the party scene, but then they cut all that out. And so at the very end of the movie, where the credits are rolling, there's a scene, and I'm in the scene, like dancing in the stands with my Delta jacket on, hair permed, laid out and everything, looking real good.
I love that.
And it's long enough for everybody that I've told to actually see it. So it exists at the end credits. But I look completely different because my hair is straight. I'm like 7 pounds lighter, but I got paid a sandwich. That's what sandwich. I mean. I worked for food.
That's wild. Well, I'm going to go watch Drumline and try to catch that at the end. I'll let you know. Awesome. Okay. So Joy, I would love to start by learning a little bit about your personal background. So if you could just tell us a little bit about where you're from, early years of life, stuff like that.
Ooh, okay. So I am originally from Houston, Texas, and very proud of it. Born and raised on the south side of Houston, 3rd Ward. For those of you who know anything about the city of Houston, I went to the High School for Health Professions. It's now called the Bakey High School, but it was only focused on people going into the medical field. I did not. What? But I learned so much about chemistry and biology. I don't know what they were thinking, letting children draw blood from each other, but we even got to practice drawing blood. We used needles, all kinds of stuff, in a safe environment.
Wow.
But it gave me a love for more than just science and, like, you know, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And we're doing arts. I was in a couple of plays in high school as well. Anyway, traveling on, I went to Spelman College and Georgia Institute of Technology. They have a program called the Dual Degree Program, where in 5 years, you get 2 bachelor's degrees, one from your liberal arts school, one from an engineering school. And so I did chemistry and chemical engineering and got 2 degrees in 5 years from Spelman and Georgia Tech. The beauty of that is...
I got to pause you real quick. So when I met you at Kimberly-Clark and you told me you were an engineer, I had to say, this is one of the most impressive people I've ever met because you were so good at sales, but what you studied is so technical that it's extremely unique. So it's impressive.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It serves me well. So I do think like an engineer, but I speak like a politician. And so it gives me a really good balance. Having that sales background, the acting chops that I got from my frustrated time as an actress, improvisational speaking. So I can talk about anything for a while with some level of knowledge, because I'm going to talk about stuff I know, or I'm going to ask questions about stuff I don't know. So it gives me the ability to talk to anybody, which is great at sales. And then when it comes out to the technical stuff, I can explain to you how paper is made and how Pringles are made. Because that was my first job out of college, was working in the Pringles plant in Tennessee. You smell like potato chips and cake every day, because the plant was one half Pringles potato chips, the other half Duncan Heinz cake mix.
That's wild.
I tell you, I cannot count the number of chocolate cake with cream cheese frosting samples we ate out of the cafeteria. I gained most of the weight that I hold now. I gained working at Procter & Gamble. It was potato chips and cake.
I would have done the same thing. I do not blame you.
Who could blame me, right?
That's so funny.
So I started off in engineering. I did engineering at Procter & Gamble, which is the Pringles plant. Then I transferred to Kimberly-Clark in 2000. And I went from 2000 to 2018 working for Kimberly-Clark. Everything from, I started off as quality assurance, research and development. Then I moved into sales. Then I was a salesperson for the city of Orlando, then the northern part of Florida, then the whole state of Florida. Then I became a inside sales manager. I was over the inside sales team for a while. That's where I met you.
Yes.
I was training for Kimberly-Clark. I was corporate trainer. Then I became a district manager for South Texas and South Louisiana. So I got to go back home after like 20 years of being away. I moved back into my territory, which was Houston, Austin, Dallas. Houston, Austin, Dallas, and Louisiana, New Orleans, Lafayette, Lake Charles, everything along I-10.
Okay.
I had the best food in my district. Once again, here we are, gaining weight for work, right?
Man.
Everybody wants to do a business dinner. They want you to take them out, blah, blah, blah. Oh, man. The amount of oysters and steak I've had
All types.
in the 2010s. It's amazing.
All types. I definitely know how it is. I feel like I got done with school and then started at Kimberly-Clark, and as a distribution sales rep, there's quite a lot of entertaining dinners and happy hours and things like that. So I had my fair share of probably too many really good dinners and added those pounds for sure. I have a question for you. You talked a little bit about your time at Spelman and your 5-year track to get the 2 degrees. Was there something that came up either before you got to Spelman or during your time there that made you say, I want to pursue this? Because that's a pretty intense course load.
That's a good question. So I had a lot of different motivations for going to Spelman. One, I wanted a Black college experience. I had heard about it. So remember, based on my age, School Days was in the theaters when I was young. And everybody, well, not School Days, well, that too, but A Different World was on television. And A Different World was filmed on Spelman's campus. So all of the stuff you see at Hillman is Spelman. And I'm looking at this campus like, I could do that. How do I get there? The other part of it was Spelman was in another state. And growing up as a slightly sheltered child, I got to get out of Texas. I got to get away from my mother. I need to go out and live my life and all that kind of thing. And I don't like the cold. These were the decisions that a 17-year-old was making. I don't want to be cold. I got to get out of the house. And Spelman looks cool. I did my research. I tell people this all the time. We make emotional decisions. Then we find the data to back it up. So I made an emotional decision. Get away from home, go have fun in Atlanta. How do I justify this to my parents? Engineering school. So they were in the 90s, they were giving away money for women, particularly women of color, to go into STEM, what we now call STEM studies. So there was a scholarship called the Women in Science and Engineering Scholarship. Actually, one of my mother's friends knew about it because she was in the educational field in Houston. And I applied. I've always been a good writer, always been an exceptional student. I was like the 13th or 14th number one. Everybody with above 4.1 in high school was ranked number one because they couldn't make a decision after that. But so I was smart. I had the chops, and I never thought I couldn't excel academically. It was never a question to me that I could do any assignment put in front of me. So let's do this. Let's go to Atlanta and never come home. That was the plan.
I see. That's awesome. That's awesome. It's really cool to think about the level of detail you went into at a young age and how that shaped the career trajectory and some of the things that you're doing now from 17. But an incredible decision and obviously paid off.
Yeah, it absolutely paid off. And I don't regret a single day of it or the way that I did it. I actually prefer having in my history, having gone to Spelman and Georgia Tech because they serve different purposes. I became the woman I am at Spelman. Mm-hmm. Well, it was the beginning of a journey of the woman I'm becoming as I start to be me. And I learned how to navigate hostile spaces, difficult places, and tension at Georgia Tech. They will put you through it. And this wasn't even about race. Well, a little bit about race, but it wasn't even about being Black or being a woman. It was nobody cares. You got to figure it out. And that thrown into the deep end with the foundation of Spelman helping me understand who I was, I beat out a lot of Georgia Tech students that started there.
Good stuff. What did you study at Georgia Tech again?
When? Ooh.
Or no. What was the...
Chemical engineering.
Got it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Awesome. So you talked a little bit about getting into Procter & Gamble and then getting into your time at KC. How'd you end up at Procter & Gamble?
Yeah. Career fair. I went so during our last year at Georgia Tech, of course, you start doing all the career fairs, looking for internships, et cetera. I had interned at NASA every summer. It was a part of the scholarship that I had. So Women in Science and Engineering, the WISE scholars, and Morehouse had their McNair scholars. We all did this dual degree program, and we all had summer internships set up at a NASA site close to where we live. So they only picked students from Houston to go to Johnson Space Center, Florida, Alabama, so on and so forth, wherever they had a NASA installation. And the job they had me doing had nothing to do with chemistry, chemical engineering, or math. They had me doing computer science. So I actually learned a couple of computer science languages. Of course, we're talking back in the 90s, so I don't use them now. But so I didn't want to work there. So I had to find another job. And Procter & Gamble was hiring for this plant in Tennessee. They did the recruiting bait and switch. It looked so cool. When I went there on day one, everybody was super friendly. Hey, here's a tour of the plant. Take a can of Pringles home with you. I was like, oh, this is great. And the other options that I had were in like Minnesota, Wisconsin, and like California. California was too expensive. Minnesota, Wisconsin. Again, I don't do cold. And they got to wear casual clothes. Because remember, this is the 90s, so everybody's doing business suits in the offices. The plant was wearing casual clothes. So that, again, a 22-year-old deciding I'm going to be warm and wear jeans, and this is the job I'm going to take. I don't regret taking that job, but it wasn't the right fit for me. I was able to find that out by learning more about myself while I was at Procter & Gamble.
Okay. I love that. I want to peel back some layers of how you got into what you're doing today. So engineering background, very technical stuff, got into KC, sales training, obviously did incredibly well there. I still to this day say you're the best sales trainer I've ever had. I've had quite a lot of sales trainers. I've learned a lot from people, but you're the best one I've ever been able to work with. And so I'm intrigued to learn more about what sparked your interest to grow into the sales and then capability training space and now the consulting space or leadership consulting space.
I will say that before I wanted to be an actress, I wanted to be a teacher. And my mother was a teacher and she said, absolutely not, because she knew how teachers got treated. And she knew that there was really, it was a burnout job. And she didn't want that for me. So she encouraged me to do anything else. And then, of course, she had engineering and scholarship money, blah, blah, blah. But I love teaching. I love to see the light bulb go off in somebody's head. I love to have someone say, oh, I get it now. And I love to help people. That I didn't know about myself. It was one of those things. And I encourage the folks because I do executive coaching, I do individual coaching, group coaching, et cetera. I encourage people to take seriously the advice we all got in high school. Find something you love to do and then get paid to do it. I remember in high school, I was like, well, I like talking on the phone and going to the mall. Nobody's going to pay me to do that. So let me go get one of these jobs.
Yeah.
And now I talk on the phone for a
Love.
living. If people pay me to do it. And I realized, this is retrospectively, but I realized looking back on my life, when I was working at Procter & Gamble, they specifically had a rule that said, do not fraternize with the technicians on the floor. They wanted to keep management and the operations folks separate. Now, me being 22 and a Black female, and all the people on the floor were Black. Well, not all, most, 80%. And they were my age. All my so-called peer group is on the floor. You're telling me I can't talk to them? That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So, you meet people out at the mall, see people in my apartment complex, or whatever. I got to know them. And then I started to help them because I would hear them complain about, I can't get promoted. Nobody would give me T2 to T3, T3 to T4. Well, let me see your resume. I'm looking at resumes. I'm helping change, make it sound more professional, changing graphics and everything. I'm teaching people how to interview. I'm saying stuff like, oh, you worked for, we'll just say Bob. You work for Bob? I know Bob. Here's what Bob really cares about. I'm doing this at 24, right? And I never stopped doing that. Mind you, that was against the rules. This was something that I did. I wanted to do it so bad for no money and no recognition. I couldn't tell anybody I was doing it, but I wanted to help the people that asked me for help. And once word got out that Joy was helping with interviewing and resumes, and Joy's giving inside track, it spread. And I love that they kept that secret. It spread. And I did that for the 3.5, 4 years that I was at the Pringles plant. I always help people. I advocated for folks to get promoted. I'm fighting for people during review time, etc. And I realized nobody really cared but me. And then I got in trouble for being so outspoken. It's one of the reasons I left the company. Mind you, Procter & Gamble is a good company. And I encourage people to take a look at their Cincinnati offices all the time. In this plant in Tennessee, things are different, which is why I always tell people, make sure you know what you're getting into. Yeah. But that kernel of, that spark, we'll call it, of wanting to help, of being good at writing was something that followed me throughout my career. And I never got paid to do it. It was always something else I'm working on for my check. And then I would do this in the background on the weekends, after work, during lunch breaks or whatever. I helped my last boss get promoted before I left Kimberly-Clark. I actually wrote a letter of recommendation for him to our president saying I would work for this guy. And then I left, but still, so I'm all about helping people. And my pivotal moment when I decided to start being a consultant, specifically in the coaching and executive space, and I do diversity inclusion as well. I focus on the inclusion piece of that, because if you can get the inclusion right, the diversity will actually come. You have to feel like you're welcome before you step through the door. And all of this, I had a pivotal moment as I was deciding I am not going to retire from Kimberly-Clark. Again, nothing against the company writ whole. The whole company is great. What I was doing in that moment was not serving me well at all. And I had this thought. You see my hair now, this nice little twist out for a Monday morning. And this was the picture I had on LinkedIn. And I thought, well, let me straighten my hair and put on another suit and take a good corporate picture so more people will want to potentially hire me. And that actually gave me a headache. I remember it vividly. As I was getting ready to go get it pressed out, I wasn't going to perm it, but I was going to press it out for the look. And I realized, you know what? If you don't want to work with me with my twist out, then you don't want to work with me. If you're going to judge me based on the fact that I have natural hair, I don't want to be in your company. And so I decided I was not going to change the way I look to fit some other person's narrative. And again, this is in 2016. I didn't leave corporate until 2018. So a couple of years before that, I was like, I'm not changing. And then I got a little more rebellious. I'm not changing. And you know what? I don't want to work in corporate anymore. I don't want to do this. Because no matter where I went, it seemed like it was going to be more of the same thing. I want to change this. I don't want this for anyone. And that turned into me doing executive coaching, helping people transition into jobs that fit them better, discovering what they really want to do with their life. And I would ask them, what kind of stuff do you do that you don't even get paid to do? You sneak and do it. That's what you're supposed to be doing with your life. And that translated into people saying, you should come and talk to my boss about this. You should come and talk to our leadership team about this. And that expanded into, you should come and do this workshop, do this facilitation, do this training for us. I got my certifications. I'm a certified executive coach. I already had my MBA along the way from Webster, but it helped me to figure out, this is what I want to do with my life. This is how I want to get paid to do it. And hopefully people will like what I'm saying. And that was 2018. Here we are, 2023, and it is working. It's working really well.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you for the quick rundown on how you got there and what New Heights Academic and Leadership Consulting does. If you could give me a 30, 40-second quick synopsis, what do you think the main services are that you all typically provide?
We provide executive coaching, workshop facilitation, training, if you will, but all of it, everything that I do is focused on helping one human being see the humanity in another human being, because that's what's missing.
Gotcha.
Can you see me as a fully realized three-dimensional human, not just worker 49844, right? Yep. Not just a head count, a body, somebody to fill an open space. I'm joy. And I need you to see that. And I need you to recognize that if you really want to understand how best to manage me, you need to get to know me. You got to talk to me. And so these are the kind of things, no matter what the topic is, whether it's unconscious bias or inclusive leadership or being a good ally or any of the other classes that I teach, it always comes back to, can you see me? And if you can see me, then you can see other people. Can you see other people? Can you recognize that this person that you never thought about has a whole life that has nothing to do with you, but absolutely affects their ability to show up to work every day? Can you make accommodations for that? Can you be thoughtful? Can you be empathetic? And so it's the empathy that I really focus on, and it drives everything that I do. And that was way more than 30 seconds.
No, it's okay. I can obviously tell that you're very passionate about the work that you do and the people that you've had the opportunity to work with. We actually brought you in at MULO to do some unconscious bias and diversity, equity, and inclusion training, which the team responded to very well. I think it was one of the differentiators for our organization, helping to make sure the team felt as if we really valued, because we did, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and wanted to get third-party experts to help teach our leadership team and help people understand some of the challenges that their peers and colleagues were working through. So I obviously appreciate you taking the time to do that, and it was very influential in the organization.
Thank you.
Yeah. So talk about some pivotal turning points along your journey that got you to this point. Were there, I know you mentioned, hey, I don't want to straighten my hair. I don't want to play the corporate game. I think I have to go out and do something different. Were there any other things that pushed you into the lane that you're in right now?
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to understand your market. And I knew, it seems on the surface as if I made a quick and irrational decision, but I knew that the connections I would need to make this business go were not in Texas. All my high school friends still live in Houston or Austin or what have you. It's high school. Most of them are doctors because we went to the high school for health professions. They cannot help me launch a consulting career. All of my college connections and all of the connections for those connections are in Atlanta. So I moved to Atlanta in 2018 to start this business with a partner of mine who had a very similar mindset. And people just thought I up and moved for no reason. But I understood. And when we talk about like women's intuition, everybody has intuition. It's not just women. Do you listen to it is the issue. And it's the absorption of millions of bits of pieces of information that come at you all day, every day. If you have the news on in the background, you're hearing it, even if you don't know you heard it. You read an article, you don't remember where you read it, but you heard this somewhere. All of that information coalesced in my mind to say, if you want this business to go, you got to be in Atlanta. And so I moved to Atlanta, found a condo, all within like 3-4 months.
Nice.
Uprooted my whole life, and I'm here. And guy I went to college with, a guy from Georgia Tech that actually dated a friend of mine. Oh yeah, he's the mayor of Atlanta right now.
Crazy.
Right? It's so weird to think of people that I used to play cards with are
Crazy.
now like public officials and doing very well. As a matter of fact, I don't call Dre for anything, but
Yeah.
the fact that the people that I graduated college with are now movers and shakers in their own right. There's a power network there that
Totally.
because I live in Atlanta, I can access it differently than I could if I was trying to be remote from Houston. I
Totally.
don't have that power structure in Houston. So that was a big aha moment for me. I got to be where the money is, right?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about listening to your intuition and then also drawing some conclusions to say, if this is where I'd like to see my life go or where I want to see my business go, I've got to make some choices. Sometimes those choices are sacrifices and say, hey, this is where I need to be for that to be successful. And so, you know, who knows, right? There might be a time where the business is where it needs to be and you end up back in Texas or whatever. But you said, hey, I need to be here if I want this to go. So I think it's admirable to take that leap and go and do it. Sometimes you waver back and forth and say, hey, this makes sense, but you jumped out and made it happen.
Jumped out. I love the way you put that because sometimes we will, and I remember Will Smith said this like 20 years ago about having a plan B. He said he did not have a plan B because plan A was so hard that it would have been very, very easy to fall back on the security of plan B. So to make sure he didn't fall back on it, he just didn't have a plan B. Now, I had a plan B because I'm not Will Smith.
Sure.
But this idea of jumping all in, I've seen a lot of people. As a matter of fact, I've coached several people that wanted to start their own business or had their own business and wanted to expand it. And I help them understand you got to be all in on this. You can't have a quote unquote day job and this is your side hustle. Even the way you talk about the work that you do, you know, is it a hustle? Is it something on the side or is this your passion? Even if it's not your current major source of income, if that's your passion, put your time, money, effort, energy into it. It'll start to turn profit for you if you know what you're doing. The knowing what you're doing is a whole nother discussion.
Agreed.
But I think the last thing I want to mention around like how I got into this was a piece of advice that I got from one of my first clients. Again, a mutual connection from Atlanta recommended me to a small tech company that I still work with to this day. And me and my partner did a full day workshop for them on being an ally, diversity, inclusion, unconscious bias, like the whole kit and caboodle. We gave them everything we had and we charged them a certain amount. And when he wrote off the check at the end of the day, he handed it to me. He goes, you should be charging way more for this.
Good.
And I was like, really? He goes, yeah, this is way undervalued. And he was like, you need to check the market and figure out where you need to be because this was worth way more than I'm paying you today.
I love that. I think it takes, you know, sometimes you look at your entrepreneurial journey and it takes really good clients who don't really have the reason, like they're not your parents, they're not your friends, so they're not going to sugarcoat it or tell you that you're good because they care about you. Sometimes those are the best interactions you can have because you go, oh man, this person who is paying me for the service is telling me that it's worth more than maybe I thought it was worth. Like, that's kind of a big deal.
It is. And it gives you that external shell of confidence until you can build it internally, you know?
Totally.
Well, so Patrick said I'm good. I must be pretty good.
Man.
And they were the first logo that I put on my website. I work with this company and now I've got dozens of logos and I know my worth. That is a big part of being an entrepreneur is you can't let people ask you for the discount price all the time because that becomes a new price. You know that from sales.
Totally. Yeah. I am adamant about paying my friends at or way above the value that they happen to put on the website or whatever they say the price is. I've talked back and forth with friends before and they're like, oh, you know, whatever you think makes sense. I'm like, no, whatever you say is the price because as someone that supports or cares about you, I want to see you go succeed. So that's a whole nother side. But I'm glad that Patrick was a good advocate for you and helped to build some of that confidence in your entrepreneurial journey. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you could go and give advice to younger professionals, maybe they are in college or in their first career, or, you know, speaking back to yourself at a younger age, what's some advice that you would give?
Know who you are and know who you really are. Don't know who you wish people thought you were. Don't know who you want to be in 5 years. Know who you are now. That will help you set healthy boundaries, brand yourself. so that you can tell people, this is who I am, this is how I act, this is what sets me off, this is my trigger, this is what I need. You tell all of that to an employee or employer, and they're going to respond in kind. Now, here's the thing. Relationships are built on trust. Trust, when it's first being created, is built on dependability. Can I count on you? Then I can trust you. And so if you behave in a way that you've told people you're going to behave, if you act in the way you told people you're going to act, they expect it from you. You become dependable. I can count on you to know this, to act this way, to show up at this time. I can start to trust you. And that's how you start to build rapport in your relationships. It's how you start to be mentored by other people because they see something in you. But you have to be honest with yourself, which means go on that journey. I see so many women and men in their 40s and 50s starting to understand who they are. If I could shorten that for people, understand who you are before you hit 30. Understand who you are while you're still in college. You can still grow, you can still expand, but take some time figuring out what really matters to you. There's so many exercises, especially you can Google anything, Strengths Finder, the personality test, the quick Myers-Briggs. Figure out who you are and how you work, and then brand yourself as such. It'll take you a lot further than trying to be something you think other people want and then failing at that, because that ain't you.
I love that. I think it is profound advice. It takes people, as you said, decades to find that. And if we can help people get to that sooner, they're going to be a lot more fulfilled, a lot more confident in their journey as they work through different things. So I love that. What new events or any special announcements do you have about your business, working on anything that we can watch out for?
You know what? I'm working on a lot of stuff right now. I'm working with an outfit out of New York, and we're doing some things with New York Public Radio. They've got their own, every 6 weeks show called Real Talk that we do for free on LinkedIn. So follow me on LinkedIn and you'll see what I'm up to. But I also have my own YouTube channel. When I first launched this business, I started a channel called A Moment of Joy.
Now, how about that?
It's a lot of quick, 2-minute bites of information about diversity and inclusion, about hiring, recruiting, knowing yourself, coaching, etc. The stuff that I would give away for free because it's a YouTube channel. But my next season recently started, so we're putting out more episodes of A Moment of Joy. So if you're looking for it, it's Joy Stevens, A Moment of Joy on YouTube. You can also find links to it on my website and on my LinkedIn channel as well.
Beautiful. Okay, awesome. I will be on the lookout for that. I've always really enjoyed the content that you put out. So I appreciate you giving us some heads up to kind of keep an eye out for that. Okay, question about your favorite book, and then we'll wrap up here shortly. So you mentioned that The Eight by Catherine Neville was your favorite book. Why is that?
It had everything that I wanted. I read that book maybe 35 years ago, give or take. And it was about the adaptability of the number 8. And it was about, a little bit of math, a little bit of science fiction. It was also about the sign for infinity, the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. And it was about the game of chess, which is an 8x8 board, and how all of this related to the espionage and action that was going on in the book. And I love the way Catherine Neville pulled it all together. I never forgot that book. I read it 4 times. Which usually I'm somebody that I will skim a book and say I read it.
Yeah.
I read thousands of books, over the course of my life. My Kindle is 600 books in at this moment.
I love that.
But I read that one 4 times because I loved the way that she pulled it together. And James Rollins is another favorite author of mine. I can't even pick a book out of his. Same thing. Cutting edge technology mixed with, espionage, martial arts, military action, and a little bit of romance, all thrown in together. So I'm not bound to one genre. They're all in there. But it started with The Eight.
Okay, awesome. I will have to check that one out. And that resonates with us a ton, as the logo for Journey is an infinity symbol. So when you told me that before, got pretty excited. That's awesome. Cool. Okay, so as we wrap up here, Joy, where can people get a hold of you? LinkedIn, email, all that good stuff. I want to make sure that if people want to reach out and learn more about your business and what you're doing, they can get a hold of you.
Sure. So my LinkedIn is really easy to find. It's just The LinkedIn is Joy-Stevens, New Heights. That's me. You will find me if you look. And my email address is newheightsjoy@gmail.com. So
Perfect.
very simple.
And
my
what's
website is newheightsawait.com.
Beautiful. Okay. I really appreciate you joining the Journey podcast today. Thank you so much for telling us a little bit about how you got to where you are. And I look forward to seeing more of your growth and development. And if we can support you at all, we most certainly will. So thank you.
My pleasure. Anything for you.
Awesome. See you.
See you.